So this is essentially a teaser episode. There's so many great nutrition dietitians out there who are going to be able to give you more specific, actionable steps. But I wanted to kind of give a quick overview when it comes to nutrition for your player. And I think the most I don't want to go too far because I really think it's summed up with I don't want to say that I can go really far into depth. In fact, I'm really excited. We're going to be able to have someone on here who knows way more about the nutrition, diet that youth soccer players from all ages and levels can benefit from. But I do wanted to say one quick thing. And again, it comes down to what you put into your body matters. So no matter what you put in, it matters. And I do think that being able to put in more wholesome, more things that are less processed is better. But again, I don't want to step on the toes of the person who's going to be joining us later on in the week, who's going to be able to talk a little bit more about this. So super excited about that podcast. But I wanted to say one thing that I can speak from personal experience, and then also I can speak from for some of the players who I work with. The more I would tell them to make sure that as they came to practice hydrated, the better off they would perform. And that sounds so simple, but you would be surprised at how many players come to a training session. We're in Texas. We are in Houston, Texas, and it is beyond hot most of the year, and especially during the summer. But you would be shocked how many times that they would tell me, oh, I didn't drink any water today, or I didn't drink any water until on the ride over to practice. And I would just be like, are you kidding me? So within 5, 10, 15 minutes of our warm-up, they are just toast. They're just fried. And then they're trying to drink a bunch of water. Not to pick on a player who just recently joined my program, but he was going through an evaluation session with us, and he was in that same position. He said, I didn't really drink that much water today. And so he came out and he was doing our session. He was drinking a bunch of water. I actually didn't notice how much water he was drinking, or I would have tried to warn him. But obviously, as the session progressed, it goes from the warm up, gets steadily harder. And, probably at the very end, he was like, my stomach does not feel well. Well, you can guess what pretty much happened at the end of that session. After he ended up expelling all his water, he was like, oh, I feel great. I feel fine. But I was like, okay, so what did we learn from this? And he's like, well, I learned that I can't rush drinking a bunch of water at the session. I got to do it beforehand. And sometimes players need to go through that. But I think it's really important for your player to understand now. Drink fluids, get the water and stop pounding the water before you get to training, especially if you know it's going to be hot. I know some places up north are starting to cool down a little bit, but obviously here in Texas, we are still pretty darn hot. So that's what I would say. Secondly, again, working with players when it comes to nutrition, I would ask them, a lot of times they were like asking me, what do I need to do to put on muscle? Which is, again, I'm going to be asking the nutritionist dietitian who's going to be coming in to our podcast next week. I would ask them, well, what do you eat? Like, oh, I eat really well. I absolutely eat well. And I would just ask them, okay, so what does that mean? I just write it down, right? They wrote it down just like 2 or 3 days, brought it to the next session. And when I tell you there would be no fruits and no veggies on what they were eating, it was shocking. So when I'm telling you there is no fruits, no veggies at all, I would just be like, okay, so I know this on its own is not like junk food. It's not like you're just sitting around eating like candy and just putting garbage into your body. But do you see how we're missing some fruits and veggies? And again, I wouldn't give them specific ideas because, again, I know that's not my job, but it is really important to be able to really get those fruits and veggies in. So if your player wants to be able, and this is the way I look at it, if your player wants to be able to differentiate themselves, they're looking for that edge. I'll tell you, one of the toughest things for people is changing their diet. So knowing what they need to put in, but more than that, understanding like, okay, I may need to make some sacrifices here. And there's so many people who are just like, I can't do that. There's no way. So what a way to gain an edge on somebody who's not willing to make a change, who's not willing to look at what they eat and say, man, I could probably add a fruit in the morning, or a vegetable at lunch, or at dinner. I can do this or I can do that. You know, those types of people who are willing to make those changes are the ones who are going to be willing who are going to be able in the long term be able to make it to the next level. So I look at nutrition as kind of a secret weapon. But again, like I said, we're going to get someone in here who can give your players way more actionable steps and be able to help them to take that next step in their game. Drink more water. Number two, make sure that they're getting fruits and veggies in. And again, start slow. With anything, start slow. Any changes in your diet, obviously start slow. But I wanted to give you guys that quick episode. Let me know what you think.